chamber, I will entertain a motion to go back into regular session and out of executive session. So moved by everybody. Mr.
Second.
Costanza,
Thank
would
you.
you at least say, I move to come out?
I move to come out of executive session.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Silvestri. This requires a roll call, or not a roll, roll call vote. So if you would call the roll on that.
Ansel?
Yes.
Costanza?
Yes.
Cavan?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Sanders?
Yes.
Silvestri?
Yes.
Warden? Yes.
Okay, we are now back on the record, having come out of executive session. That brings us to item 4 on the agenda, communications from the mayor and administration. Mr. Mayor?
Just very briefly, I want to thank council for indulging in an executive session, and our thanks to the audience and the community for indulging the time. I think it was a necessary meeting, and we appreciate council's endurance. Just want to say thanks to the Wooster Chamber of Commerce for Wooster Fest this past weekend. I thought it was a pretty awesome event, and brings a lot of folks into our city. And lastly, I just want to congratulate Joel for being a credentialed manager certificate, or getting a credentialed manager certificate from ICMA, the International City Manager Association. He was there at the annual meeting this past week and received that certificate. And that's all.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to item 6? 5. Communications from, or petitions, right?
Yep.
I've got mine misnumbered since I put them up.
Liquor control.
Yes.
They've been waiting patiently.
Yes, I know, and for transparency purposes, I will say I did handle a matter on behalf of the corporation with regard to the purchase of the property that's seeking for the liquor license. So if we would please read the petition for the liquor license, please.
Okay, from the Ohio Division of Liquor Control, Bougie Inc., DBA Sunoco Mart, 209 Bell Avenue, Wooster, Ohio, 44691. They are asking for a permit class of C1.
Okay, as you are aware, we can ask for a hearing here in our county seat, basically here in Worcester, in Columbus, or we can waive having a hearing. What's the council?
Motion to waive hearing, Mr.
Motion
President.
to waive hearing by Mr. Ansel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Silvestri. Would you call the roll on the waiver of the hearing?
Ansel?
Yes.
Costanza?
Yes.
Cavan?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Sanders?
Yes.
Silvestri?
Yes.
Warden? Yes.
If you would, send to the Department of Liquor Control, notice that we waived hearing. That's it. You're free to leave, and thank you very much for your patience. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Have a
Good luck.
All right. Any committee reports? I don't think so. And we had a public hearing last council meeting, none this week. I guess I've skipped communications from the public in terms of the sign-in sheet. The matters that would be before us are with regard to the moral claims piece of legislation. Are the Earlys here?
Mr. Early's.
Mr. Early? Would you like to address council on that, or if you would state your name and address, please? Oh, I always forget. This is the only reason we hired John. He directs people.
He's good at that.
Yeah,
I keep you in order.
Dave Early, 656 East Highland Avenue. Just want to say thank you to the Moral Claims Board. Appreciate the consideration. I think the decision reached by the board is a fair resolution of the matter. All I have to say.
all right. Well, thank you for waiting and appreciate your comments. A couple other people signed up for executive session, but that's not an item that is to, that we are deciding anything on, so. Seeing that, I think we've had everyone who has spoken on a matter that's to be decided tonight. That brings us to unfinished business. We have a third reading of resolution number 2018-050. It will be presented by Mr. Ansel, but Little Bird told me he'll have a motion for us when we get to him. If you would, please read the title of the resolution.
Resolution number 2018-050. A resolution authorizing the mayor to make a gift to the Wayne County Community Foundation for the benefit of the Wayne County Fairground Improvement Campaign.
Mr. Ansel, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. In light of our most recent discussion regarding the infrastructure improvement in lieu of a capital campaign fund gift to the Fair Board, I'm going to make a motion that we table the amended resolution 2018-050. What will happen when we table this, it will go on to the table because the new action supersedes it for infrastructure only. And if there's no action within 6 months, this just dies a natural death, or 1 month. Or 1 year, it dies a natural death and it'll be removed from the table. So this will just be a retired piece of legislation that will have no future action against it.
And
Thank
that's
you.
what I'm hoping to do, die a natural death. You know?
Yes.
All right.
Hopefully longer than a
In
year.
executive session?
It only seemed like that. So is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Second by Mr. Myers. Would you please call the roll on the motion to table?
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Warden. Yes. Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri.
Yes.
Costansik.
Yes.
All right, resolution number 2018-050 is tabled. That brings us to ordinance 2018-016. This will be presented by Mr. Sanders on its second reading. Before I get to you, Mr. Sanders, I will ask Mr. Paulo, who's waited patiently all this time, to please read the title.
Ordinance number 2018-016, an ordinance amending Part 11 zoning of the codified ordinances of the City of Wooster, Ohio to rezone land to R3, attached residential, R4, multifamily residential, C2, community commercial, and C3, general commercial for property located on the south side of East Smithville Western Road and east and west sides of Friendsville Road.
Mr. Sanders, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, as we discussed 2 weeks ago, both in the public hearing and then also in the council meeting, we have an application here that was filed by the attorney of the property owner regarding zoning changes or requested zoning changes on the newly annexed property there at Milltown and Smithville Western Road. At this particular juncture, I've not had any conversation with anyone in the community either for or against this. And I know that there was some questions about what potentially was going to go into these areas. And at this point, until such time that there's a submission to the city for a development plan, all we can do at this point is potentially, all we can do with this is just, say that we agree with these zoned areas, and as we had heard from the Mr. Dutton, the city's planning manager, they all fall within the guidelines of both the code and of the comprehensive plan for the city. So at this point, I guess I do have a quick question for the property owner who I see is here. Is this an item that is important to you that we pass this evening, or is another 2 weeks really going to make a difference for you? And please be candid.
Thank you, Councilman Sanders. Jim Richard, I am both the attorney for the landowners and the landowner, but we can wait 2 weeks. I'll be candid since you asked me.
Okay. All right. Well, at this point, I think what I'll do is we'll let this ride another 2 weeks, and again, obviously we'll have to call a vote in 2 weeks, but at this point, I really don't see that there's any conflicts. There's been zero conversation that I've had with anyone regarding it. So at this point, we'll say that it's had a second reading. Other than, do we want to have any discussion, Mr. Blankendyke, or?
No, that's good. As you related, we'll consider ordinance number 2018-016 as having its second reading.
And at this point, I guess we'll have any final conversation.
Right.
The next meeting at
Yeah,
that point.
so
There's no
if
question.
anyone wants to dig in and look
Right.
further, be my guest, and we can hear your comments at the next meeting. That brings us to resolution number 2018-057. This will be presented by Mr. Ansel. It is presently slated for 3 readings. If you would, Mr. Paulo, please read the title.
Resolution number 2018-057, a resolution authorizing the payment of a moral claim as recommended to council by the Moral Claims Board and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Ansel, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. And I want to thank Mr. Early for his attendance at the recent moral claims session. It was certainly an unusual session. We had a council person not able to attend, and it made the voting challenging because we had an even number. But the package presented by Mr. Early regarding the claim of his sewer backup at his home on Highland Drive was certainly one of the most thorough that we've seen as a moral claims board, and very proud of the city of Wooster for still maintaining a moral claims board where damaged citizens can come and express their case and claim and try to receive some compensation for the damages incurred. As you know, the cities are exempt from a lot of these penalties and through the Ohio Revised Code, so we're able to sit down and hear the facts and the claims and proceed accordingly. This was particularly interesting, and I have an itemized summary, and I'm sorry that it wasn't covered under your original packet, but I have the comprehensive packet compiled by Mr. Early here, and I'll give you a verbal summation. Roto-Rooter invoice of $6,514.65. Itemized personal belongings, which was very conservative. Many of his older furniture items and so forth, he didn't even itemize in claims, but there was quantifiable items and personal belongings totaling $1,838. A nice oriental rug that he evaluated on the low side of $400, and then the wall repair from the water sewage damage in the lower basement area, for a total of $9,822.65. Our deliberation was unique, and it was back and forth, and I just want to make a public service announcement for other residents in Worcester. Mr. Early had a previous, 8 years earlier, some minor backflow from his floor sewer drain in his basement. Nothing of damage, and he just mitigated it. Nothing was damaged, but then a substantial rain occurred, and the catastrophic backup was very, very problematic. And the pictures are something, I don't know if you really want to look at it, but it's pretty gross. It's not a happy sight. And based on his first situation and occurrence, there was an assumption made that he had storm sewer backup insurance, as a lot of policies do have. But when checking his policy, that had been waived, so instead of having a $1,000 deductible, he had a nearly $10,000 out-of-pocket expense. So originally, the Moral Claims would have considered perhaps a higher recommendation in terms of the offset, but we had a majority decision regarding splitting the expense for the itemized expenses to the tune of $4,911 and some change. I mean, what is the ordinance originally? What's the, I don't have that in front of me.
4,912.
12, okay, 12. Which is half the amount, some culpability on behalf of the residents for not having that rider on his insurance policy. If there are situations that each and every one of you have had any type of past issue, it's probably wise to check your insurance coverage to make sure you have that waiver not checked or exempt, so you have that coverage. So we had majority resolution that we would like to reimburse him for roughly 50% of his expense. And barring any questions, I am going to motion to suspend the rules and move resolution, hold on.
2018 days.
Yep, to third and final reading this evening.
Why don't you make that motion?
Motion made.
Is there a second by Ms. Warden on the motion to suspend the rules? You want to call the roll on that?
Yes, sir.
It's the least we can do since we had Mr. Early spend all this time waiting for us to get back in the regular.
Had his wife with him earlier, but,
She
expired of natural causes too.
yeah. Costanza,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden. Yes. Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan.
Yes.
And the rules are suspended. Do you have another motion?
Yes, motion to adopt, Mr. President.
All right, motion to adopt by Mr. Ansel. Is there a second by Mr. Costanza? Any further discussion? Seeing none, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt?
Costanza,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri.
Yes.
Warden. Yes. Ansel.
Yes.
Cavan.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Early, for
Thank you.
patience and working things out. Appreciate it. You don't, if you want to stay for the rest, you're more than welcome. If you leave, you're not going to offend anyone. That brings us to resolution number 2018-058. It'll be presented by Mr. Silvestri. I noted, at least on my resolution printed out, was it's budgeted, so it won't require suspension of the rules. But it does require Mr. Paulo to please read the title.
Resolution number 2018-058, a resolution authorizing the expenditure of funds for consulting services with Green Arrow Engineering.
Mr. Silvestri, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. So since the city of Worcester has taken over control, full control and ownership of our anaerobic digestion system, we have retained the counsel, if you will, and guidance of Green Arrow Consulting. They have assisted us with getting things back in line so that we appropriately evaluate feedstocks that we put into the digester, which helps to cut down on noxious odors and bad smells that had been coming from the facility before we took over full control. Also, another benefit that we can attribute to Green Arrow Consulting and their guidance is the opportunity to go from a Class B product of that facility to a Class A product, and it cuts down on the number of pathogens and contaminants the harmfulness, I guess, if you will, of those, so that we don't need a permit to discharge or to, for example, put on a garden or put on a farm field the product of the facility. So I know that, I guess just to be descriptive, you put the food in the one side, and then the waste that comes out that's no longer usable for the system. We never used to be able to put that right directly on a farm field without some kind of a permit where the toxicity is evaluated, but now we can. So a couple of the things, evaluating what goes in and increasing the caliber of what's coming out, and then in between, increasing the efficiency of the operation. All of those aspects have been things that Green Arrow Consulting has guided us through. Up to now, we've been under the $50,000 mark, so it's not required council approval, but we're on track right now to spend beyond that, so that's the only reason this piece of legislation is before council tonight. If anyone has any questions, I know Joel is here. Yes, Mr. Bissett.
Oh, just a quick one. Do we have an estimate about how much more than $50,000 we're going to spend?
Roughly, it depends on how much we get to this year. We have several projects we're working on right now, so maybe $10,000 to $15,000 in that range. We only have a couple of months less in the year, so we'll be lucky to get that much more work done the rest of the year.
That's a good question. Right now, this piece of legislation just authorizes the administration to exceed the threshold.
Exceed 50, but not the amount that we would have in the budget.
Right. And I want to thank Joel for all the wise and conservative spending that we've done on that particular piece of the budget. Otherwise, this money would not be there.
So, am I hearing it right that this engineering company will increase the efficiency and potentially decrease the awful odor that we've been witnessing or experiencing?
They have helped us do that, correct, Joel?
Well, this weekend it was
Correct,
atrocious.
the weather pattern wasn't.
It must have been Wooster Fest.
Yeah, so one of the things we were not able to do prior to when Quasar was here was because we had so much sludge in our lagoons, we had to haul it and mix it, we had to do it. We couldn't do it based on weather or rain events, we just had to haul it and mix it. We now have that ability to do things like change how we're mixing, which we're in the process of doing, put in weather stations so that we can physically tell the sludge hauler, don't haul on these days. We didn't have that ability before, we didn't have a choice. What's coming in had to go out, we had to get rid of it. So those are all things we're currently implementing right now.
So this will help improve
A
that.
couple other projects, they're helping us really with the whole process, but those are some of the things that we're working on right now.
Is this a contract that we're going to extend next year then as well?
Yeah, we'll propose that next year.
So is this going to be an ongoing contract for the lifetime of the
I would say not the lifetime, no. Just, as we continue to tweak and modify the process and move forward, less and less.
Mr. Katz?
I would recommend that they do something to mitigate some of that smell, or I can't give them any more money next year, because that has just gotta stop. It just has to. Weather be damned, it's gotta stop. We had the Wooster Fest downtown, and it's just, it's been going on too long. That's the number one complaint I get as a council person is the odor from downtown. Do something.
Mr. Bastian?
Yeah. Joe, what kind of engineering has to take place before we can get rid of the vast majority of that odor?
We're looking at different chemicals, we're looking at designing roofs for a couple of tanks, we're looking at upgrading our septic receiving, we're looking at, there's some flaring, adding an additional valve and a flare valve, because at times if you exceed the capacity, it simply discharges that, rather than being flared, so we're adding that to it. There's some other odor control things that we're also having in.
Is there going to be a decision made after? Do you make the decision, or is the consultant the one that's going to make the final recommendation on mitigation of the odor? I mean, is the city make that decision, or is the
Ultimately,
consultant
it
coming
would be
back?
us, but we would ask Green Arrow to help us,
Yeah.
look for the best ways to do that, the most cost-effective
Do
way.
they have something coming up
I
maybe?
mean, I have 6 projects on the list. We won't get to all of those this year. The other thing is, it is a wastewater plant, so there's always gonna be a little bit of smell, but we are trying to mitigate that as much as possible.
Thank you.
You had your hand.
It's okay.
Well, I'm glad we're going to have a higher class of treated sewage, but Mr. Silvestri, I'm not going to be putting it on my garden. So,
Thank you. Good questions. Look forward to hearing about the improvements that the city administration is undertaking. I was not aware that there were 6 projects that we're looking at. I know we're continually doing a number of things. I know we had even talked about the extra flare discharge valve. So doesn't that have a pilot light on it, Joel? Does that have a pilot light already on it? So there's like a big, because we saw it go off like a big torch when they first built the system. So that shouldn't discharge and not be consumed and incinerated by fire when it does, correct?
Correct,
But sometimes it does.
correct.
Maybe the pilot light goes out, or I'm not sure how that works.
It's a lot more complicated than that. Sometimes, it's, depending on wetness and water going in, you don't want to dig it back down into the system.
Sure.
So there's just some tweaks we can make.
Okay.
I have one other
Yeah.
question. Is there a cap on the spending for this? I mean, the way it's,
Yes, the budgeted amount, so we came to you with a budget for, and we outlined in the budget, specific items for operation and maintenance and specific capital items. So one of the items in there was miscellaneous capital items, and there was about $30,000 in there, which we haven't spent yet.
okay, so this is just a formality to release the funding for what you,
To go over the 50,000, because we can't go over 50 without council approval, but we also cannot go over the amount budgeted without council approval.
okay.
So these were already approved budgeted amounts.
So just for the sake of the public, and so to add the numbers together, is it as simple as 40,000 plus 30? Would that be the cap?
If we manage to get, I don't think we're gonna.
No, I
we
don't
just
think we
have
would
the
either.
time to get that much information done the rest of
well, the rifle shot question is how much was budgeted there?
it. We had about 30,000 in miscellaneous capital that we haven't, so it's not gonna be more than that.
We're not gonna hit that 70,000 mark is the answer. But that's how much is left in the budget that we passed last year.
Yeah, roughly.
Okay.
May I ask just one quick question?
Well,
No?
the public portions over, I'm sorry, is it Miss Siebert?
Yes, Francine Stevens.
Yeah, Siebert, yeah, so. You might want to ask after the meeting if, because here's the gentleman that's going to know.
Oh, I was just concerned about the poop pond, I call it, that's gonna go
Yeah,
up.
that's outside
Yeah,
the
so-
city limits. That's why we're
But that's
developing,
gonna blow into the city.
that's, yeah, we
Into
can't
this
do anything
project.
about that, so,
Yeah.
sorry
I'll go
about
to the
that.
county on that one.
And, do you have a motion for
Full
it?
amount is budgeted, so I just move for adoption.
Right. So you
I move for
it.
adoption.
Mr. Silvestri moves to adopt. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Myers. Would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt?
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Gordon,
Yes.
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Costansich.
Yes.
So, resolution number 2018-058 passes, brings us to the final piece of legislation this evening. It's resolution number 2018-059. It will be presented by Mr. Ansel, and it is slated for 3 readings. Before I get to you, we'll have Ms. DiPaolo, if she would, read the title.
Resolution number 2018-059, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to advertise according to law and enter into a contract with the lowest and best bidder for the construction of infrastructure for the benefit of the Wayne County Fairground Improvement Campaign.
Mr. Ansel, the floor is yours.
Yes, this resolution supersedes the previously discussed gift to the Wayne County Community Foundation for the Wayne County Fairground Improvement 4-H, junior 4-H building. That being noted, I want to commend council for their recommendation to focus on infrastructure, the city's responsibility to improve the gateway into the fairgrounds. This is a reasonable compromise. It accomplishes something for the city as well as improving the entry gateway to the fairgrounds. So since we've had considerable discussion on this in the past and there seemed to be a consensus recommendation that this is the way we wanted to proceed, I will motion to suspend the rules, Mr. President, and move Resolution 2018-59 to third and final reading this evening.
Motion to suspend the rules moved by Mr. Ansel, which is only fitting because we asked that this be drafted. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Borden. Would you please call the roll on the motion to suspend the rules?
Sanders.
Yes.
Silvestri.
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
Ansel.
Yes.
Cavan.
Yes.
Costanza.
Yes.
Meyer.
Yes.
Okay, the
Motion
rules
to
are
adopt.
suspended. Motion to adopt by Mr. Ansel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Warden. Further discussion? Mr. Myers.
Mr. Ansel, I noted earlier that we removed the provision where we're taking these funds out of the bed tax fund, but I believe that we decided since it was infrastructure, that was probably 6 of one, half dozen of another, since the half of the bed tax that goes into our budget goes into the general fund anyway. So,
That is correct.
so the only accommodation would be if we decided to take part of it out of the part we give away, but I think the decision was we'll just take, this is a city's portion, so.
Correct.
Anyone else? Seeing nothing further, then would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt?
Sanders.
No.
Silvestri.
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
Ansel.
Yes.
Cavan.
No.
Costanza.
Yes.
Myers.
Wow. Yes.
So that pass on
Yeah.
5-2. Oh, it's 3.
it's two
Two noes.
noes.
2 noes.
2 no. That passes.
I'm just trying to do the math
We
in
have
my
one.
head. So, two-thirds.
That passes.
14-6. Well, I'm deferring to Mr. Scavelli. Is that two-thirds?
Hold on.
Or the number man, what's two-thirds of 7? 5. Then we got 5. All right, then it does pass. So resolution of, what? So resolution.
quite exact.
Usually I could do that, but it's been a long evening. Resolution number 2018-059 passes, brings us to the miscellaneous portion. And let's see, who'll be the lucky one? Mr. Silvestri.
Yes. I want to thank everyone who came out this evening, and I know City Council had an executive session that took much longer than I had anticipated, so thank you for everyone's patience, and I think we were able to get down to city business eventually and get things done. Thanks.
Ms. Warden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also would just like to reiterate, I appreciate the public involvement of everyone coming out, and especially those who took the time to come and speak to us, you know, in the executive session. I think we all appreciated the time that you put into it, and we heard you. Thank you.
Mr. Ansel.
Yes, a productive and enlightening executive session. Again, it was time well spent. Thank you to the administration and the community for taking the time to meet with us and give us better visibility and perspective on some very important issues for the city of Worcester. And Joel, congratulations for being a credentialed city administrator. That sounds pretty darn impressive.
Mr. Cavan.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Mr. Bostancic.
I'd just like to remind everyone that we have an infrastructure committee meeting next session at 6:30. And that will be so that Rogers can give us a presentation.
Sounds good. Mr. Myers?
Thank you, President Bidendike. I just want to state my personal and professional support of Captain Matt Fisher and Assistant Chief, so they're not Captain, Chief Fisher and Rotolo. They've been through a lot of public beatings in the newspaper, and I feel they've been somewhat undeserved. So I just want to let you know that I support you 100%, and if anyone in the community has questions, feel free to call me. Be happy to tell them what I know.
And Mr. Sanders will give you the last word.
I have nothing to add, Mr. President.
Actually, I'll take the last word. This is kind of a shout out to the retired Dean of Council, who always prided himself and that the city of Worcester had a morals claims board, which is probably one of the few cities in the state of Ohio that has one. So this one's for you, Mr. Albright. Seeing nothing further, I see
Motion to
Mr.
adjourn.
Ansel has moved to adjourn. Second by Mr. Myers. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.